everyone, and welcome. I thank you for sharing your breath and your energy with me. Thank you for being a part of this co creation and allowing me to share what is important to me and what is in alignment, what is dream affirmative. My intention here is to offer you a four-step or four-part principle system for making optimal decisions, meaning dream affirmative decisions. Dream affirmative decisions means the choices you make direct your destiny into that which is most authentic and representative of who you are and your highest path. It's a four-part system, and I originally heard about this system from Bashar, and I've modified it in a way that works best for me. And I'm going to unpack it, and my intention is for this to be a little bit of a shorter podcast, but we'll see what comes out. There's two ways of working with this system. One is short term, meaning in the moment. You can utilize this four-step principle system to make optimal decisions at each and every moment. And you can also use it for longer term planning of your goals. Now, my system in holistic alignment coaching is an 8-part system, and this is one of the principles built into it. And what I recommend for individuals, if they want to make the most of it, is to work with the system throughout the day, of course, but morning and night. To have a check-in, an alignment, and an attunement in the morning, because the morning is when you are the freshest. Your mind is the most open. The decisions you make, especially in the first 2 hours of your day, set the momentum and course. Because we're always working with the conditioning that we've received from the past. And we're always working with the many distractions and the many other energies of the world. People wanting to sway us in accordance with their desires. So when we have a desire, when we have a dream, there's some discipline we need to have to stabilize that within our own mind and not get pulled into our conditioning or get distracted by the many things out in the world. In the morning is this amazing opportunity when everything is at its fresh. It's at its optimal space for imbuing the emptiness or the beginning of the story with the script that you want, with the intentions that you have, with the desires that you want to follow. And at night, my metaphor here is it's like a computer. You open up all these tabs in the day, all these programmed patterns of behavior and relating. And then if you can effectively close those tabs, you'll start much fresher the next day. Many people don't close the tabs of the mind, and they continue to run programs, thoughts, and worries into the night, and they don't get as deep of a rest, and they don't wake up as fresh. Still fresh, but not as fresh. There's always optimization that we can do. The more we work at a higher level, the more we can continue to optimize at higher degrees so that we can perform and move towards our goals with greater ease and flow. And the night is when we also process what we've done in the day. So part of the holistic alignment coaching system is to integrate the actions of the day. We look at various dimensions such as our values and our virtues, our goals and our dream, and we see where we were in or out of alignment. And this keeps us on point. Because if we're not tracking something, we're guessing about it. We're not following the patterns of growth to see how they're moving. So the more awareness and attention we can place on what is most important to us will help us to move in a good way. Now, I've made probably about 5 podcasts about my holistic alignment coaching system and the 8 dimensions. So if you'd like to follow up this video with those ones, you can find them on my Spotify channel, on my YouTube, And I'll place a few other links of resources that you can look to for those. But we're talking about the 4-part system here. And let's get to number 1. Number 1 is act on your greatest love. So there's some key words in here, and I'm going to break this down so that you have a good understanding of how to properly place this principle into your life. When Bashar talks about this, he talks about acting on your highest excitement. And he uses the word excitement to mean that vibration. It's a vibrational state. When you are excited, it's the path of least resistance. It's when you are authentically showing up and you don't need to wear those masks that are so common as we put on personas to act in certain ways, to live in our society for the roles that we've taken up. And when we can take off those masks and act in an authentic way and act and follow our excitement, something happens. We can perceive things we couldn't ordinarily perceive because the masks we wear are a filter. They're a filter for our reality, and they keep us from being in the optimal positive state, which we'll talk about as we get into the later principles. But when we're in our optimal positive state, we can perceive a wider array of opportunities. This is because when you're in a negative state, it's like being in tunnel vision. Because the negative state calls upon negative belief structures and they filter perception. For example, if your consciousness has a lot of fear in it, that fear will have a physiological effect on the cortisol. And that cortisol will change the system, the nervous system, so that you're more in fight or flight. The fight or flight response will put you into sympathetic tone, which will literally make your vision like a tunnel vision. One of the effects of parasympathetic activity, or the rest and relax system, is to widen peripheral awareness. So this isn't just a metaphor. This is something that is actually happening at the level of the physical and the energetic. So acting upon your highest excitement or your greatest love opens you to the many possibilities that are available. And it's only when you're acting from this place can you see the possibilities that are available. But built into this is also your purpose, your dharma. So what is the purpose and dharma? Everyone's got different definitions for these. The way that I'm expressing it, I say purpose is to be. Your purpose isn't your job or your career. Your purpose is simply to be. That's your highest purpose. And so long as you can be, and you can always be, then you're fulfilling your purpose. And the reason why I place being as the highest purpose is because it's right here and now. And for me, it's the ultimate truth. But it's not something outside of this moment. If your purpose is always something in the future, how can you live in the now? The now is the only true moment that is ever experienced. So when the purpose isn't outside the now moment, there's an opportunity to be fully embodied in each and every moment, not needing to get to the next. And this is the ultimate place to make the optimal decision. Now, I discuss what many people talk about as their purpose as their mission. My mission is to empower individuals to find harmony and achieve their dreams. This is enacted through my business, through my coaching, and the many things that I do in the world. Now that has specific goals. But the purpose is simply to be. And Dharma is a concept some people can throw in the idea of purpose integrated in there because it is. I express Dharma as universal order. And when we're in harmony with Dharma, we're in alignment with the laws of the universe, and internally and externally there is harmony. So it's a place of universal alignment. One other way of thinking about this acting on your love principle is it's love making. Meaning that as you pursue this path, you make the choices that are in alignment with your greatest love, it produces more love. One of my holistic coaching mentors, Paul Chek, talks about the 3 choices we can make. The optimal choice, which is best for everyone involved, including Mother Earth and Father Sky. The suboptimal, which is usually just best for ourselves, which is usually the habit pattern reaction, unless we take the time to make a conscious decision. And then the do nothing principle, which can be the optimal if we don't know where to go and we need time to introspect and reflect. But it can also be suboptimal when we're stagnating, when we're not moving, because of some kind of impetus or fear, or whatever's arising that's preventing us from moving forward. And then the first word is very important. Act on your greatest love. It leads into the second, which is to act on your greatest love without expectation. So acting without expectation is the second principle. And what's built in here is trust, is faith. Many of us want to act on our greatest love if there's assurance. If we can purchase some insurance on it. If we can be assured that we're going to be financially stable and have everything all set out in a way that our mind can understand it, that there's some certainty. And many times in the pursuit of our dreams, that's not going to be there. Because it's almost built in, not always the case, but it's almost built into the very process, is that you're not working within the understandings of your mind or the limitation of the mind as its current conception, but you're going beyond that if your goal is sufficiently big. This is talking about, of course, long-term goals. So when you find what is most exciting for you, most of the time you're not going to be able to understand how you can actually get there. And part of that work is to create a plan. Not that that plan should be stuck to with great rigidity, because part of this process is just to make a plan to give the mind enough calm and ease to have directionality to move forward in any direction. And then as you're moving forward, to not be so rigid on that plan, but to continue to be open to the opportunities as they arise. And then staying out of a negative state, which will put you into that fight or flight, which will limit the opportunities that you can perceive. We're going to talk more about that as we get into the later principles. But we want to be able to follow this path without expectation. It's a common spiritual teaching to talk about, to offer up the fruits of action. What's also built into there is a capacity to be total. When you become total, your whole being is in presence. When your whole being is in presence, you are in the now moment. The now moment is the moment of empowerment. When we can stay in a positive state in the now moment, this is where miracles can happen. This is where we can completely change the course of our life. To the degree we can be total is to the degree we can live this life, to know ourselves, which is, for me, the purpose, is to fully be. And in that totality, we have to be all in. We have to be all in a way. If we were to die at any one moment, we would not have clinging and grasping to this life. So when we act upon our greatest love with absolute abandon, we are complete. Our whole life is complete. And we're at a level of surrender that if our life were to be taken, that's okay, because we're doing everything we can possibly do. If we're acting out of partiality, is that a word? Partiality? Partiality. If we are impartial, if we are acting split, not fully ourselves, we're not in full realization of what we are, we cannot know what we are, and we'll have more lessons to learn. And if you have more lessons to learn, you're not done. And if you're not done, when your time is up, you'll want to stay longer. So the idea is to act so totally without expectation, with a level of detachment, healthy detachment, which is you're not disturbed when things don't go your way as you have predicted or planned them. Which leads into the third principle. Stay regulated, positive, and in a receptive state. Staying regulated directly points to the nervous system, that balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And when we're in the middle path, there's dynamic flexibility to move, to teeter to one edge or the other. Meaning if action is necessary, we can engage. And when there is time, we can rest and slow down. Our body can oscillate between these two poles with ease and flexibility. That's a regulated state. The regulated state allows us to be in equanimity. That means equal parts positive and negative, equal parts masculine and feminine. If you as a being know yourself fully and totally, between these two poles, you're in realization. This is also the pathway towards staying in true positivity. True positivity, I'm contrasting with, let's call it, unhealthy positivity. Unhealthy positivity is an insistence on seeing only the positive, as if there isn't the negative, to the degree that you're desiring to only see the positive and neglecting the negative, you put yourself into delusion. True positivity is having the awareness of the negative, seeing it and knowing it fully, as well as the positive, and having a higher perspective to not need it to be one way or the other, so that you can come and see it from the middle place. And from the middle, then you can make the choice. If the choice is made with an attraction towards the positive and an aversion towards the negative, that pattern in the system will bias you. And it's only a matter of time before the universe balances you out. Because that's the nature of reality, to shift between these poles continuously, so long as we live in this realm. So what we have to do is be able to come back to equanimity, to equal parts, and then see things clearly. And this gives us the opportunity to shift into positivity. So if there's ever anything going on with you and you're in a negative state, maybe a trauma has happened, maybe a negative experience has been the habit reaction of how you have responded to an event in your life. This is okay, this is part of life. This is where our teachings are. These will continue to happen. What we learn is the capacity to be resilient and to respond with greater consciousness and find the lessons and teachings with greater ease. So what we can do when we have those negative states negative circumstances is we can see all the positives we are gaining from them. Somebody in the family is sick. Maybe it brings the family together with love. Maybe there's a car accident. Then you get a new car. Maybe there's sickness or illness. You get some time off work. There's always something to see in both domains. But the negativity has a stickiness, because the negative emotion has negative beliefs and stories attached to it. And negative beliefs are self-replicating. All beliefs are self-replicating. That's why we consistently can perceive things. Our beliefs are thoughts attached to feelings. And we choose to have different beliefs at multiple levels, conscious and unconscious, to have different experiences so that we can learn. So if you're having a negative experience, you have a negative belief that's attracting those negative emotions. And your work is to understand what that negative belief is and why you have it. And it could be multiple beliefs in a constellation that are attached. We often inherit negative beliefs from our early childhood, but our society and our culture also influences us a lot. And we choose to have negative beliefs, once again, from a higher perspective, so that we can have experiences. When we're done learning those experiences, from those experiences, we have the wisdom. The wisdom is when we can see, once again, the negative and the positive, and we can see them as equally valid from that higher perspective, and we choose the positive, and then we learn, for example, if it's a piece of our past, why that was there, why each of those individuals was there, what role they played in our life, how that affects us, and how that's helping us in the now moment. And when that's complete, we no longer have charge that's held in the system, meaning we're no longer biased towards one side or the other. We can see it from both sides, and it discharges it, and that memory is no longer gripping in the same way, and we can let it go. And then we can invite in new stories, new themes, and move on to the next development in our evolution. So this capacity to stay in a regulated and positive state is really key. I teach individuals to do this with my coaching through movement, meditation, and breath work. In some sense, movement helps the physical the most, meditation helps the mind the most, and breath work helps the emotions the most. But in essence, each one of those practices affect all three levels. The way I like to work is to work with all three, of course. But if there's underlying beliefs that aren't being addressed, a lot of the times if we're just doing energy work in the physical and the emotional bodies, we can clear up things, but the root is not being plucked. And the root will attract those negative emotions and discomforting states again and again. So if we have an underlying belief, let's talk about self-worth, about our self-worth, we will continue to attract negative emotions when that negative belief gets triggered in our environment, and that can get triggered when we're in our workplace, when we put ourselves out there online, if we're performing and we fall, whatever it might be. If we're not addressing that, we'll continue to attract negative emotion, and you can do all the breath work, and you can go for a run, and you can clear that feeling from your system out, but unless you get to the root, it's going to keep returning. If you can do the work to determine why and what beliefs you have in and around self-worth, you can see the value of why you held those, doing that positive and negative analysis. And then there's an opportunity to create more space to write the new story of what you would prefer and to act upon it, to take that thinking pattern and allow it to shift your mental, emotional, and physical state. And this is empowering your new story. And to the degree you can walk through the world like this, you will begin to integrate that consciousness, that belief system as a mental, emotional state into the present moment. And yes, the old belief system may come up, especially as you're integrating the new belief more and more, and especially as it gets right to the end, where that old system of not believing in yourself is about to crumble, that's when it's going to be the most vicious. That's when you're going to hear those stories in your mind. That's when it's going to come to the forefront. But know that that's the end, because that's the last grippings of that story before it's null. And then you can go on and continue to write the new story of your life. So the power comes from the capacity to be aware, to have the consciousness, the expanded awareness, the higher perspective of the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body, and their overlay in your mental, emotional, physical, and like all three bodies at once, because they're all interrelated. They're all truly one. They're just different densities of energy. And having a regular practice, morning and night, of checking in with the system that I'm sharing a little bit about and the 8-part system, and then having a regular practice of movement, meditation, and breath work to address the mental, emotional, and physical domains. In my holistic coaching system, I also talk about the 7 chakras and the 6 zones of the body. So it's all about creating a comprehensive, a total system, so that you're tracking all domains of your body, your mind, your emotions, your being, so that everything can be kept in ideal alignment. Because my whole coaching system, that's why it's called holistic alignment coaching. And this 4-part formula, it's all about putting ourselves in alignment. Alignment refers to a certain level of attunement. It's when our mind is aligned with our dreams, our highest goals. Because your mind can be aligned with many things. Coming into this life, we're giving conditioning, we're giving conditions, circumstances. Our culture tells us what to believe in many ways. There are many values in the culture that may or may not be in alignment with ours. So aligning your mind is a process of self-individuation, to determining what you value most. This is why I talk about values in the 8 dimensions of my holistic alignment coaching system. What are your primary values, and what is your highest value in this life? Which is your life theme? Now, we have many themes in life, but most of us come in with a prominent theme, which is related to our highest value. And knowing this is important, because then you can make conscious decisions to act upon it. And you can also have the awareness, because your highest value is also going to be your greatest challenge. For example, my highest value is harmony and balance. And harmony and balance, what's the opposite? Being imbalanced, being out of harmony. That's my life theme. I'm constantly coming out of harmony and coming back into it. Now, we all have, in some sense, this principle, but this is very active in my life. I'm a Libra as well. I'm a reflector. There's many other points to which this is a major theme in my life. If your highest value is authenticity, there are probably many times in your life and continually where you're coming out of authenticity, or you're putting yourself out there more and more and learning what it is to be in greater alignment, greater authenticity of who you are. So a little bit more on principle number 3, stay regulated, positive, and in a receptive state. Being in a receptive state is an energetic state. There's giving, and then there's receiving. There's asking, and then there's listening. I don't know if that's how those truly go together, but you get the sentiment. It's masculine and feminine. So much of this is all about understanding our fundamental energies, understanding the most fundamental relationships we have with positive and negative, with inhale and exhale. And when we balance these most fundamental aspects of who we are, this is how we find harmony. This is how we find our highest alignment. And when we have goals and dreams, there's a certain part of that process which is acting on them, which is related to the first principle. It's what we do to offer, or asking the universe for these desires, and then we offer in some sense. And we want to, as best as we can, stay in a receptive state as often as we can so that we're open to receive. We're open to receive our manifestations so that we don't have to do all the work. We're co-creating with the universe. We're co-creating our dreams with our dream team, which are all the people in your life that you're dreaming your dreams with. Most people don't just dream of being in a cabin alone in the woods, and even if they are, they're still co-creating with those woods. But we all have a dream team of a number of individuals, our family unit, our friends, our business partners, our communities that help to sustain. So we're all working together. And the more that we can be in a receptive state, our mind is open to receive ideas. There's a difference between thinking thoughts and receiving ideas. The only way to receive ideas, and these are often insights and revelations and sparks that really change the course of our life, is to be in a receptive state. It indicates we're introspective in some sense. We're turning within. So we need to flex our internal practice, which is why I emphasize movement, meditation, and breath work. There is, of course, a time for action and activity. And there's a great imbalance in a lot of our culture in the degree at which we are externally oriented. This is being the Western culture. This is not true for all places in the world, and it's not true for all places in the West. But in general, we are more yang. We are more externally active. This is one of the reasons why I place greater emphasis on the internal dimension. One, because I do believe it's the more powerful way, because I find that changing myself is more impactful for myself and the universe that I live in, because I'm changing me, the creator of my reality, rather than trying to change forces outside of myself, which I have much less control on. I leave that to the universe, the creator. So my emphasis is on the internal, and the emphasis is on the internal because it's easier. The more external we become and we try to navigate our goals and dreams that way, the more force and effort we have to have. So there's an optimal balance, and each individual actually has, I find, a ideal balance between being internal, being balanced, and being external. Some of us are naturally more external, more yang. And these individuals are typically ones who work more in the world, who have greater success in business, typically, not always, because their orientation is external, so they're out in the world, and that's where their dominant energies, attention, and focus is. I'm more, I would say, balanced. I have a developed internal life, and I also have quite a developed external life. And some individuals are way towards the internal. If you want to go towards that polarity, you can look at individuals who are austere monks. Their external impact in some sense is very small, but you could also look at it as being some of the most influential people, not in the ways that we typically see it. It's not in the most in your face, but they're still influencing the world in a dramatic way by the contribution of their vibration. It really doesn't matter to what degree we are internal or external. As I'm saying, this is more to do with our nature and how we show up in the world. This is all just coming from our self-awareness of who we are. We're all influencing equally, or as much as we need to. Okay, that was a tangent, so I'm going to hop back and just end that. So let's review where we're at as we get to the fourth principle. So acting on your greatest love, which is to say follow your greatest excitement, which is to say act in accordance with your purpose, which is to say be in harmony with Dharma, which is to say create the most love within yourself and choose the optimal decision. It's going to benefit the all. Do this without expectation, with a healthy detachment. Pursue it with totality and stay in a regulated, positive, and receptive state. And principle number 4 is to assess negative beliefs as they arise. So in the course of acting on your highest excitement, part of what is built in there to help to grow you, to help to offer you teachings and learnings, is you're going to become aware of the limitations of your mind, the limiting beliefs you hold, and the negative stories. For example, when I first started my business, when I wanted to book the trip to Peru that I did this year, when I wanted to do anything that I hadn't done before, which was an expansion into the unknown, what came up was my limitation. I don't have enough money stories, I'm not good enough, there's not enough time, I'm not enlightened enough, whatever it might be. We all have our individual set of beliefs and stories that we have to work through, but there are general ones such as money and time, which are pretty ubiquitous amongst us. So what do we do with those? We assess them, and then we come into right relationship with them using various different processes that I teach, such as the one that I explained before. You find what the negative belief is and you discharge it. The reason why that negative belief is so pernicious is that it's dominant in your default mode. It's how you perceive habitually. You don't see there's an equally valid and more expansive positive belief that could be had. Or if you do, you don't always act on it, only at times. The negative belief is there and it has a charge and we're oriented towards it. It's got that gripping, that stickiness. So we want to understand, where did this belief come from? Why do you hold that belief? What other beliefs are attached to it? And then to dismantle it by seeing all the positives for having this belief and understanding. I don't have enough money. Okay, where did that come from? Why do you have that belief? And what are your definitions about money and abundance? Can you have a definition that says, I have everything I need when I need it? That's a definition of abundance that allows for expansion, that allows for you to be where you're at and feel good, regardless of how much you have, because you have everything you need when you need it. There's no negativity attached to that belief. So we rewire all of our limiting beliefs. This is why I have a very comprehensive system in the 8-part holistic alignment coaching system to look at the various dimensions of our 7 chakras related to our security, our tribe, our relationships and sex, our power, love, communication and expression, our mind, God. We all have received conditioning in all these dimensions, and they're very key to our understanding of self and the way in which we act in the universe. So when we can move through and understand the limitations in our beliefs, we can do the inner work to clear that, to discharge that negativity, and to shift towards the positive belief that is dream affirmative. This whole system and understanding, it's important to know this, that it is one of empowering you as the creator of your reality. So there's a necessary shift out of victimization and seeing the world, as many see it, as the primary place of cause and effect, is one way I'm saying it, with a question mark as I say it. What I'm saying here, what I'm attempting to express would be a better way, is that you are creating your reality. It's happening for you as a co-creation from your higher mind. And from the more limited perspective of your current ego, as you look out into the world, you are co-creating with your higher mind, which is what people call God, what people call the universe. This is all you, it's all one. And you're co-creating it, meaning that you've chosen on some level from a higher sense, in a higher sense, to have certain circumstances and opportunities so that you can just explore certain themes for your growing, for your learning. And if you would like to choose a different reality than the one that you currently have, perhaps you don't like your job or you don't like certain conditions of your society, you can choose to create a new reality, to shift into a new timeline, to choose to have new beliefs, which will change your perception, which will change the way you see, perceive, and walk through the world. And you will walk down a new destiny line, which will create a new pathway for evolution. And this will be a contribution to the collective. So it's important to assess negative beliefs as they arise, to develop tools, such as the one that I've mentioned for clearing negative beliefs by discharging them, but also through movement, meditation, and breath work. Movement, meditation, and breath work can help you to clear the energies in the system. The limiting belief is in the mental body. The negative emotion that is attached to it is in the emotional body, and that affects the physical body as well. It's holographic in some sense. It's splayed among these many different dimensions or lines of energy. So it's good to learn to move energy through the system. This is breath work. When you take a conscious breath from your root, from your low belly, and draw it up through your chest, all the way up even to your head, the energy of that breath, or the inhalation, moves a very subtle energy, which some call chi, through the system. And as that chi, that more subtle energy than the breath itself, moves through the system, it's moving through the energy body. The next layer from the physical to the next layer up in, or I guess down in subtlety, is the emotional body, and then the mental body. Mental body is more subtle than the emotional body. And as you move the breath through the body, you may feel congestion or holding or tightening. This is the result of the mental emotional stress on the physical system. And the physical system, as it is tight, there will be emotional blocks at that next level up or down, depending on how you're speaking to it. So as you breathe up through the central core of your body, up through the spine, up through the abdominal and thoracic cavity, if there's holding in the chest, or in the diaphragm, or in the throat, this is indicating some kind of mental emotional stress. This is why I call my system holistic, because it's seeing things from the perspective of the whole: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And any kind of congestion in this way doesn't allow the breath to move through the system in an optimal way. If we're not breathing in an optimal way, you're not perceiving life in an optimal way, because you're not in harmony and balance. Your most fundamental relationships are so important. And if you're breathing, your conversation with the universe of inhale and exhale is off, that most fundamental relationship with life is off. Maybe it's imbalanced because you're not able to fully receive your inhaling breath because there's too much contraction in the body. How can you fully receive the fullness of life and move into your totality if there's congestion in the system? You're not fully open. So the opportunities that life is showing you aren't available for you to see. Not that they're not there, not the universe isn't giving everything it possibly has in each and every moment. You can't see it because of what's inside. That's a limiting belief. That's a stored emotion. That's an old trauma. So the more that you can get intimate with your energy, to get embodied in the physical, emotional, and mental domains, the more clearly you'll understand and know yourself and know what these blocks mean. Because I can teach individuals why they have a throat block, and I can get a sense for what they're going through, but ultimately my whole coaching system is about self-empowerment. And ultimately, you know better than I do what's happening within you, which is kind of a funny thing. And it's not like I'm completely in the know about everything either. It's like when someone has an illness, when something infection is going on at some level in the body, some imbalance, maybe a little candida or something, we as a conscious mind may not know that we have it or what's going on. And many people spend years trying to determine what's wrong with them. But on some level, your body, of course, knows what it is. It's identifying it and trying to work with it. And from a higher perspective, of course, it knows what it is. It's just about how do we get that information from the body to the mind. So we must become whole. We must bridge these. We must learn to listen at a deeper level, listen to a language that is the most universal language of vibration and sound, but is in some sense the language that we have forgotten, in the sense that we have shifted most of our communication to thought and verbalization through our formal languages, English and Chinese and or Mandarin and all these languages. Pardon me. Is Chinese a language? Sorry, I threw myself out in the wheelhouse there. I really don't know. I don't know any other languages but English yet. So I'm going to open up to, well, unless we're talking about internal and languages that are not formal languages. Another tangent, back on track. Assessing negative beliefs, clearing the energy, moving the energy, vital skills. So I've gone through the whole system now. Let's do a review of it and then hit on the key points and then talk a little bit more about implementation of this and then anything else that comes to my mind before closing this episode off. So, as a moment-to-moment practice, you were given infinite potential to choose at each and every moment. Some moments you may have more choice in some sense because we have contracts or agreements with employers and other people where we don't always have an infinite capacity in some sense to choose, because we could always just quit and do whatever we want. But there are many opportunities when you have so much time to choose how you will spend your time. Even if you're at your work and you have an agreement and you're like, once again, once we get into belief systems, if you have belief systems that support you, you can always quit. If you have belief systems that support you and you want to follow your passions, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want it. But just be aware that you need to have the belief systems that support you. You need to have the confidence within yourself or be willing to do the work to clear them as they arise. That's another tangent I'm not going to get into. Because there's a lot of things that come with this system, right? Because it's easy. This is why I changed it from Bashar's act on your highest excitement to act on your highest love. Because I understand what he says when he says excitement, as he explains it. But I feel when I hear act on my highest excitement, there may be a mismatch there for individuals, including myself, to act on their greatest pleasures, which this could be built in there if used correctly, but acting on your greatest pleasures would be like, oh, I'm going to do acid and then cocaine and then have a bunch of sex, which in some sense is a tantric practice to go through your desires, whatever they are, even your lower desires, only to see that once you pursue all those lower desires, that eventually the higher desires are preferred, because you see when you choose the lower desires, they're not that fulfilling. So in some sense, there is truth to that. But if we can avoid those pathways that often lead to tumultuous occurrences, if you want to put it that way, if we can take a moment to consider what the higher path is, because the optimal decision is more gratifying. The optimal decision being what is best for us and all parties involved. And that to me is a function of love. There's excitement there, but there's love there. And that's why I also talk about purpose and dharma in there as well, because it calibrates that decision in consideration of the all, of all of our relations. And when we can think and make decisions from that higher place, it keeps us from more selfish decisions. And that acting is key And acting is key because of the second principle of acting without expectation, but it's also our commitment of faith. Because if you truly believe that you can have what you want and you're willing to pursue it, you will make the actions that demonstrate that you actually believe that. If you say you want, for example, I've been working at going to Peru for several years, but we had a pandemic when there wasn't flights, and then it became a question of how can I manage this with my business and with finances? And for a while there, I couldn't get there with my mind. And I never did. I just made the decision to book it, and I'm just trusting that it's all going to work out. So I'm acting in accordance with my understanding that I know that I'm meant to be there. I know that it's the most exciting thing for me. I wanted to do 3 weeks, and then for a while there, I was like, well, might as well just do 2 weeks. It'll be easier on the payments. You don't have to be away for a whole month then, because I'm doing 3 weeks at a center and plus another week on the ends of that. And then I was like, but I want 3 weeks. 3 weeks is more exciting. So I chose 3 weeks. So I'm acting in complete trust. And my work is to stay in trust because there's still 3 more months and there's still many different financial goals, we would call them, to get to create harmony among this. And I can see myself. The moment my old belief systems come up, those negative and limiting beliefs, I get thrown off, I get put in that tunnel vision, and then the opportunities and the stress and the fight or flight, everything comes all at once. And then if I can keep in a heightened state, and my state is even more heightened than you could say in the past, but I don't know how you can make that relative judgment, but it stays in a high vibrancy state, an aligned state. This is when I attract the things that are in alignment for me to attract with that future. So there has to be like an anchoring of my mind in meditation. This is why the inner practices of movement, meditation, and breathwork are so key. There's a stabilization of my mind on my goal. So at all times, I'm aligned with it. I'm calibrating to it. I'm attuned to it. This is not easy. This is why I work with my holistic alignment coaching system morning and night. So I have touch points. So if ever I'm out of alignment, it doesn't last more than a 24-hour period, or if whatever I'm dealing with is a little bit tumultuous, it might. But I have the checkpoints, which are my anchorings, and I'm only going to go for so long before I come back to balance, because I am supported in my actions. So acting upon your greatest love, without expectation, staying in a regulated and positive state and a receptive state through movement, meditation, breath work. I don't even think we talked about it, but through gratitude. The best way to be in a receptive state is to be aware of what you already have. There's no way to receive more abundance unless you are aware of the abundance you already have, because if you're not aware of the abundance you already have, you're most likely perceiving from a place of lack, because you have everything you need. You have everything you need. So until we can come to the fundamental realization that we're before we're successful, and that we have everything we need, and that we have all the money we need, we have all the love we need. There's no way to attract the love into your life until you know you have all the love you need, etc., etc. Assess your negative beliefs as they arise. So be very mindful. How do you tell when negative beliefs arise? Because they can be pernicious, they can be sneaky. Your emotional state. Your emotional state is reflective of your thinking patterns. You have thoughts and beliefs before you have feelings. In order for you to have a feeling about something, you have to have a belief about it. So if you're not in a positive state, you have to be able to take the time to understand what beliefs are there, or a capacity to clear that emotion through movement, breathwork, and meditation. Otherwise, it'll be so hard to regulate. Our path towards our greatest desire and embodying and manifesting and all those lovely things in accordance with our love is about self-realization. It's about becoming a master of ourself, higher levels of self-regulation, a capacity to heal ourselves, because becoming whole is to heal ourselves, and a greater capacity to self-realize who we are, what we want, and what our greatest desires are. Not the lower level desires, those are integrated in the system, but the higher purpose of Dharma. As I mentioned, this can be used as a short-term system for making decisions at each moment. As many of these decisions that you can make, they will be highly charged with your love, with your intention, with your emotion, and they will shift the course of your destiny and create opportunity through synchronicity, through pathways that your mind can't understand. As a long-term system, I suggest using this and my 8-point holistic alignment coaching system. Acting on your love. There's more to just making decisions in the moment, right? You can plan a career. You can plan trips. You can plan all of these things. Of course, there's a way of working with planning things and the expectation of them, but working with this system can be done long-term as well. As I also mentioned, try to use this system as best as you can at morning and night. This will give you the optimal leverage with your subconscious, because your subconscious is what is determining your reality, your habit pattern reactions, your perceptions. Working with the conscious mind is working with a sliver of your totality. You want to work with the conscious and the subconscious in the morning and the night, and your practices around these times are so key. As I mentioned, I have a number of different resources. My 8-part holistic alignment coaching system, which I have a number of podcasts on. I'm developing a kind of a worksheet that you can work with in your mornings and nights to keep you on track for your habit tracking. Holistic coaching, you can work with me one-on-one for 1 hour, 2 hours, or longer term, 6 months, 3 months, whatever it might be. I share movement, meditation, and breathwork one-on-one sessions, healing sessions, as well as teaching you practices such as Qigong and other tools to regulate, to move energy, to clear limiting beliefs. Final thoughts, final words. Go out there, act on your highest excitement, your highest passions. It's a contribution. You are setting an example when you do this, that all others can do this. You are liberating, you are freeing yourself of old conditioning. You are helping your family, you're helping your community, you're helping your earth. And it's your personal pathway to knowing the divine, to learning the lessons of your soul, to embodying your greatest truths, to acting on your greatest love, and then correspondingly to receive the love of the universe, which is all that is, which is all around you, which is all that you are. I thank you for listening. I thank you for sharing your breath and your energy with me. Aya Om.